On today's child seat review segment, we are taking a look at the 2016 BMW X1. Now, although the X1 has become a little bit smaller this year than last year, it actually has a hair more room on the inside. As usual, this is a Graco Classic Ride 50 child seat. It is a convertible seat suitable for forward or rearward facing installation and children between 4 and 50 pounds. Even though the X1 is a little bit more spacious on the inside, it is important to remember that this is one step smaller than the BMW X3. And the X3 is about the same size as your average compact crossover, like a CR-V or RAV4 on the inside. And that means you won't find as much room in the back seat as you will in the next step up from an X3, like an X5 or even a Ford Edge. That means that when it comes to room in the back seat, especially for rearward facing child seats, you'll find about the same kind of room as you'll find in a compact sedan in the United States. Something like a Honda Accord would give you an awful lot more room in the back. As usual, the first step is to move the front seat as far forward as is possible and as upright as is possible. This is one of the areas where the extra legroom we get in the 2016 model really comes into play. That extra room really helps out the X1 because the back seat in the GLA, for instance, is especially tight, and although I don't have the appropriate clearance between this child seat and the front seat, it is very, very close. Now, I'm 6 feet tall, so if you're shorter than me and you're sitting up front, you can move that front seat further forward and you'll have a little bit more room for a rearward facing child seat. Because the X1 is not only shorter than an X3 but also narrower, we don't really get any additional room by putting the child seat in the middle. You should also keep in mind that you want 1 to 2 inches of clearance between the front seat and the child seat when in this rearward facing situation, because in the event of an accident, the front seat can move a decent amount rearward and you don't want it to impact the child seat. As I said, the X1 is not a terribly wide vehicle, so when it comes to our 3 across child seat test, this just didn't quite fit. I wasn't able to actually close the door with all 3 seats in place. Now, you should keep in mind there are narrower and there are wider child seats available. So if this situation describes you, you may either want to get a wider vehicle or narrower child seats. When it comes to anchors, we do have the usual complement for this section of 2 latch anchors for the outboard seating positions and 3 sets of top tether anchors for all 3 seating positions. One very nice touch in the X1 is that we have a 40-20-40 folding seat back, and that means that we can actually put child seats positioned very nicely right here in the middle of these outboard seats, and then you can actually recline this center section separately from the 40% side on either side. Also interesting is that they all recline, and they recline independently of one another. That means that in the X1 you can still put long items in the vehicle and 2 child seats in the car, and that makes it an awful lot more practical when it comes to cargo than some of the other options in this segment. The X1 also scores very well right back here in the cargo area. This has actually gained 2 cubic feet of space versus the previous generation X1. That's of course because this is now based on a front-wheel drive platform, not a rear-wheel drive platform, and that tends to mean the car is more efficient overall in terms of packaging. Run-flat tires are standard on every X1, whether you get the summer tires or the all-season tires. That's important to keep in mind, but it does mean that we have a little bit of extra cargo area under the load floor if you don't get the optional spare tire. Now, this cargo area is not quite deep enough to put a 24-inch roller bag completely underneath the cargo area, but it is very, very close. With the spare tire out and the cargo load floor removed from the vehicle, you can see how much room we have in this cargo area because it does drop about 6 inches below this entry point right here. That means I had no problem fitting these 3 child seats in the car. This tonneau cover will actually close properly over them, as will the hatch, and you could still put some extra luggage all the way around the child seats. This is a very large and very square cargo area. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been our very quick look at child seats and the 2016 BMW X1. Be sure and check out the full review on the 2016 X1 coming up on my channel very soon, and I'll see you next week.